Hey everybody, happy Torch Thursday. How's everybody doing out there? Wherever you are today, hi Corvus and Smee, Heather, and everybody else. Welcome to Torch Thursday. And today we're going to be doing this project. This is our beaded link chain. I actually really love doing projects like this because I'm occasionally a bit of a fidgeter. And so these are actually... and I have the exposure turned a little bit down because once I start with the torch, it's going to be easier to see if it's a little bit dimmer. But so the beads actually free float on these chain links, and I love that because it makes them really fun to fidget with. I've done this, you know, in a bigger size and made bangle bracelets with beads on them that free float. There's really no reason that this couldn't be a fidget ring. You just have to size it correctly, and you'd have to take into account the fact that that bead takes up space in there, but you can absolutely, you know, you can make earrings, you can do a whole lot of things with this technique. So what do we need in order to accomplish this tonight? We are going to need some 18 gauge wire. You can make this out of any gauge wire that you want. I picked 18 gauge because it's frankly less expensive than 16 gauge, and since we're doing a soldered chain, I don't... Hi Lori, how are you feeling? How's your shot? Where was I? Oh, it's less expensive than 16 gauge, and it's still plenty sturdy for this chain. But if you want to do a chunkier chain, you can absolutely do 16 gauge or even 14 gauge wire. And the whole thing is made of 18 gauge wire. So this chain in my hands started out as this, just straight wire in a coil. So you are going to need approximately, and my notebook is over there, but that's okay, I can cheat because it's on my website. So you're going to need about 6 feet of your sterling silver wire in whichever gauge you choose. So once again, that's why I picked 18 instead of 16, because sterling silver wire is not cheap these days, and so 6 feet of 16 gauge wire is not an inexpensive project. Now 6 feet of 18 gauge wire is not an inexpensive project either, but it's a little bit more reasonably priced than 6 feet of 16 gauge, or good lord, 6 feet of 14 gauge. Don't even. That's like enough money to fill a gas tank right there. I even made my own hook clasp. So literally nothing on this necklace is prefab except for the beads. No, I did not cut and polish the beads myself, but I even made my own hook clasp for this. You are going to need some large hole beads, and so you need some beads that have 2mm holes. The reason the holes need to be so large, even though you can see the 18 gauge wire is nowhere near 2mm, is because of the curve of the circle, okay? Because your hole has to be big enough to accommodate the curve of that circle if we're going to actually free float on, on the links like we want to. So 6 feet of 18 gauge wire approximately. That is going to depend also on how big you make your links, and your beads with the 2mm holes, and easy solder. That's literally all you need as far as supplies go. Now the question here is, oh Smee, the question is, does Allison have any easy solder? And the answer is, why, yes she does. Good job, Allison. This is why I never put anything away, because at some point I'm going to forget a supply, and if I'm lucky, it will be right there waiting for me in my little box of mess. So easy solder, we're going to do the whole thing with easy solder. If we start having problems with getting the solder to flow, we can go to extra easy, but I did the whole sample with easy and really didn't have any problems with it at all. As far as tools go, you're going to need your entire soldering setup. So you're going to need your torch, and I have a feeling my torch probably needs a fill, so I'm going to go ahead and fill that up before I get started. Y'all are hilarious. So you're going to need your torch, soldering surface, flux, hand tools, round nose, chain nose, wire cutters, files. Sorry y'all, but we are going to have to file these circles in order to get them to solder closed. So you can... Okay, let's talk for a second about pickling versus tumbling this chain. So this is the one area where it gets a little hinky because a lot of stones don't do well in the pickle. So when I'm doing this kind of chain, my preference is to use a stone that I know I can put in my tumbler. Now, you've heard me say time and time again, don't ever put stones in your tumbler. It's not a good idea, and for the most part that is absolutely true, but in this case tumbling is actually a better way to clean this chain, and it's better for your stones than pickling is. So when I'm talking about stones that'll work in the tumbler, you want to stay away from anything that's dyed because the dye might bleed out in the tumbler. You want to stay away from anything that's porous, so that's no turquoise, no lapis, no pearls. You also for this need a stone that is not extremely heat sensitive. So these are carnelian corvus. So carnelian's a really durable stone and is really great for this particular project. Other good stones for this project would be clear quartz, onyx, amethyst, any of your natural agate beads would be great for this project. Just steer away, of course, from the dyed ones. So nothing fragile. You need a sturdy and non-porous stone. So the carnelian is a great choice. So I'm not actually going to pickle my chain at the end of the night tonight. I'm actually just going to take the whole thing, throw it in my tumbler, come back to it tomorrow, and it'll be all shiny and pretty, and then I'll post a photo on Discord. The one tool that is might not be in your regular setup that's going to make this a whole lot easier is this. This is a large bail making pliers, also sometimes called a wrap and tap pliers. Now, you can make your chain links using a ring mandrel or a dowel. Absolutely, there's no reason you can't do that. But the wrap and tap makes it really easy. And I used all 3 sizes of the barrel here. So my big links are the biggest size, my medium links are the medium size, and then I just did 2 small links, one for each end, and those are the smallest size. And I'm sure there are probably other things that I forgot, and I will tell you about them when I remember that I forgot them, as usual. So we're going to start by making our chain links. So for a 16-inch chain, what I wound up making was 7 large links, 14 medium links, and 2 small links. I should write that down somewhere or I'm not going to remember. So it's 7 large, 14 medium, 2 small. So as we've discussed on stream before, when you're trying to make circles and you're trying to make many circles, the easiest way to do it is actually to make a coil and then cut it, and then you have a bunch of circles that are all the same size. So I'm going to take my wrap and tap pliers, and I'm going to take my wire, and I'm going to grab my wire in my wrap and tap pliers like so, and I'm just going to start rotating it around my pliers. Now when I get to the point where I can't move any further because my wrist is in this very awkward position, I'm just going to loosen my pliers, spin them back around. So now I've got the portion of the loop that I have made that's on the other side of my pliers, and I'm going to continue around. And the main key here is you want to make sure that each loop you make, each new loop you make, goes below the loop before it. That way you will never run out of pliers because your loops will just progress off the end of your pliers to infinity, possibly even beyond. Now notice that my wire is springing up. We know that's a thing that wire does, so my largest mandrel size on my wrap and tap pliers is making a larger loop than the mandrel itself, which is just something that happens with wire. Wire's springy. So I'm going for 7 links of this size. I need to coil more than 7 coils in order to accomplish that, because I'm going to lose a little bit with my cutting. So I've got right now 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half. So I'm going to go ahead and coil more like 8. So that's 6. And how I'm keeping track of my count is whenever this comes back around again, that's one full loop. This is 7. And that should be 8. Okay, so that's one coil. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that coil off, set it aside for a minute. Now I'm going to make my medium links, and I'm going to do 14 of those. Okay, so now I'm on the middle-sized mandrel of my pliers, and I'm going to do about 16 coils. So just start rotating it around. Make sure you go underneath there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-ish. I have enough wire. So if you didn't want to make this whole thing from scratch, you don't have to. You can definitely use a prefab clasp, and you can definitely use a prefab chain to finish it out instead of making the entire length of the chain. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I just wanted to show you guys how to make a whole chain start to finish. So you've got 2, 4, 8, 10, 12, 13. Okay, cool. I'm going to have enough wire. That's exciting. Never even occurred to me that I might run out of wire. Okay, I think that's enough. I might have to go back and turn another link or two, but I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. Okay, so that's my chain from, or my coil for my medium links. I just need 2 small links, so I'm just going to do about 2.5 or 3 coils. Okay, so that should be enough. And then the last thing I need to make is my clasp. So I'm just going to cut off a 2-inch piece of wire for my clasp. You can use whatever size, whatever length of wire you want. It just depends on how big you want to make your clasp. If you want to make it very large, then use a longer piece of wire. And I'm going to grab my round nose pliers and just real quick take the bottom and bring it around. That's where it's going to get soldered. And then find something slightly bigger than my pliers but smaller than my Rapid Taps. In this case, it happens to be a container of nail glue. And bring that up and over to make a hook. And then this does not need to be this long, so I can go ahead and just trim that off and just give the end a little upturn. And that's a basic hook clasp, so you don't even need to solder this necessarily as long as you're making it of a fairly heavy gauge of wire. So it's a good cheat if you're stuck in the middle of the night trying to finish a project and you need a clasp but you don't have any. It's really nice to know how to make them out of wire. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut our chain links. So I've got my flush cutter here. So the way that this works is we're going to start at the end of our coil and we're going to cut that flush. That means the flat side of my cutter is facing towards my coil. Then I'm going to flip my cutter around. I'm going to line up with that cut that I just made, and I'm going to cut the next coil. And this time the flush side of my cutters is facing the opposite direction, still facing the link that I just made, so that I have a circle with two flush ends. Then we're going to go back, flush cut the end, flip our cutters around, line them up, and cut. And those are my two small links. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my medium links. So it's always a good idea to just flush up the end of your wire, even if you think it's already flushed, because you never know. Alright, so then turn and trim, flush, and cut, flush, and cut, flush, and cut. So somebody out there who has taken formal metalsmithing classes or has been watching an excess of YouTube videos, or maybe just the right amount of YouTube videos on fabrication and metalsmithing, may be asking themselves, why am I cutting these with a wire cutter and not sawing them? And the answer to that is that just I'm more comfortable with a wire cutter. Unless I'm doing a very large quantity of rings, it's way easier for me to snip them with a wire cutter than it is to saw them, just because also I always have a wire cutter out, just because of, you know, the fact that we're a bead shop, whereas my saw and my bench pin do not live on the tabletop all the time. So it's like, you know, I have to get them out and set everything up, or I can just grab a wire cutter and do it this way. So like I said, much more convenient for me. There's no reason you couldn't saw these. And if you saw them, you actually don't have to do as much filing. Sometimes you don't have to do any filing, which is pretty wicked cool. Alright, so let's see how many I got from this coil. This last one's a little funky, so I'm hoping it's an extra and I won't have to use it, but you never know. Okay, so how many did I get? I got 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I don't have to use the weird one. That's great. Okay, so those are all my medium links, and now I'm going to go ahead and cut my large links. Same thing. I'm just going to flush the end and then trim my coil, or trim my circle. So if you're using a good flush cutter, we should not have to do very much filing on these in order to get them to solder. Which is good, because I know filing is everybody's least favorite part of soldering. What did I need? 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, cool. So I don't need those two. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab my file, and I'm just going to separate each link and just flatten out the end of the wire like so. Turn around, flatten out the other end of the wire, and then move on to the next one. So once again, as long as you did a good job with your flush cutting, you're not going to need to do a whole lot of filing. So while I'm filing this, let's talk about what's upcoming on the Beading Dreams stream. So tomorrow night is our Zoom crafty cocktail time. So tomorrow night you will not find us on Facebook, you will not find us on Twitch, you will find us on Zoom. We will be Zooming from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Central Time. If anybody hasn't gotten, you should have gotten the Zoom email last night. Heather sent it before we left. If you haven't gotten the email with the Zoom credentials, just hit us up. You can either whisper Heather, or you can Facebook message us or email us beadingdreamsdallas@gmail.com. That's going to be from 6 to 8 tomorrow, where everyone gets to work on their own project. And of course, Heather and I will be here for assistance if you guys need any help. Saturday evening, we will be back on Twitch with this project. This is a wire wrapped ring. It's kind of a freeform wire wrapped ring. I wanted to make a project that was more conducive to odd shaped stones, so that should theoretically be a wrap that's going to work on almost any shape of stone. We'll see. I'm going to try it with a different shape than my sample. We're going to see how it works. And I just finished my class samples for next week, and I've got some fun ones. I've got a cool hammered copper necklace.
So cool.
Carol agrees that it's so cool. I've got a setting for an emerald cut for our Torch Thursday class, and I actually have a sterling silver ring with a flush set gemstone that requires no soldering whatsoever. And that's going to be our Saturday evening tutorial. So it should be a fun week on the Beading Dreams stream. Yes, it is. Somebody asked me for more wire ring tutorials, so I am trying to oblige. So yeah, filing is also the least fun part of... No, the stone for the ring does not need a hole, Sharon. It's designed for a cabochon or a cut stone. It needs to be, the stone does need to be flat on the back. It's not a setting for a pavilion cut stone. It has to be something that's flat on the back, or the one in the photo. Yeah, so the one in the photo is actually, it's basically a table cut on the front and on the back. So it just needs to be a mostly flat back. So continuing with the filing. Also, Sharon, I had no idea that you knew Craig Walther. She was in today. The beading world really is so very small. It's crazy. She's been coming in for a while now, but I had no idea that you guys knew each other. I swear, sometimes it's like old home week at Beading Dreams. It's just like everybody who walks in the door knows everybody else. It's sometimes very bizarre of just how very small the beading world actually is. Oh, we did forget about the birthday bash. Thank you, Corvus. So after the ring tutorial on Saturday, we are going to be having a birthday shindig for moi, because it is Saturday is my actual birthday. So we'll be doing the tutorial at 6, and then anybody who's local here in Dallas is welcome to come by around 7. There'll be champagne and snacks. We're going to be streaming from out there, and it's going to be a fun time. Hopefully we'll have a fun kind of party atmosphere. We may have some guest hosts on stream so that Heather and I can enjoy the party as well. So it should be a fun night on Saturday. So yes, birthday shindig after the tutorial on Saturday. So sale starts at 7:30 on Saturday. In-store shindig starts at 7. So if you're coming and you're local, come around 7. But if you get here later, since we're streaming from out there, there'll be plenty of people to open the door for you. Oh my goodness! I will do that next time she's in. Also, Sharon, she found a strand of beads that she thought you would like, so I'll have to put it on the stream on Saturday. See if she's right or not. They're rose quartz. Okay, so like I said, a very minimal amount of filing on each link. You know, there are whatever 14 plus 7 plus 2 is, you know, there are a fair number of links, so even with minimal filing on each, you know, it still takes a minute. Sorry, my hands are really dirty because I've been working with wire all day, doing samples for next week and doing repairs and whatnots. Okay, and as long as you've got decent contact on your clasp, there. As long as you have decent contact on your clasp, you don't need to file that one. That should be able to solder that way. Okay, so now here's a big, it's not a secret, because if you watch any chain making tutorial, you know, they'll tell you how it's done, but when you're making a chain, typically what you will do is you will solder 50% of the links closed, just flat on your soldering board. And then you will go back with the other links and link them together and then solder those closed. That way you're only dealing with the somewhat difficult step of soldering a link while it's attached to a chain. Hi Shaquille Oatmeal. Welcome to the Beading Dream stream. We are making chain tonight. I'm just about to bust out the torch. So you'll go back through, once you've soldered half your links closed, you'll go back through with the open links and link them together and then solder those closed. That way you don't have to deal with, like I said, the somewhat problematic thing of having your pieces precariously balanced on your soldering board while you're trying to solder your chain links together. You don't have to deal with that for every single link, only for half of them. We love questions on the Beading Dream stream, so shoot. Who knows what I got myself into there. Okay, so favorite smell and least favorite smell. Oh, that's a tough one. Definitely partial to the smell of a burning torch, not gonna lie. Let's see. Least favorite smell.
Liver of sulfur.
Well, for most of my stuff, it's definitely liver of sulfur for sure, which smells like rotten eggs. I will say I've become a bit desensitized to liver of sulfur over the years. Super pickle when you make it with Sparex. That stuff stinks to high heaven. Hate that smell. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do a little bit of calculating. So I know, alright, so I know for a fact that I can throw things on the floor, excuse me. Yeah, so don't throw the links that you just made and filed on the floor. It's not, I mean, campfire, burning torch. Yeah. Okay, so I know that I can solder closed all of my large links. I'm going to show you how to put the beads on them in a minute. And then I can also solder together and 1, 2, 3, 4 of my medium links. So I'm going to solder together all 7 of my large links and 4 of my medium links. And just to make sure that I don't mess that up, I'm going to put all the things I'm going to solder, and I can also solder together my clasp. So I'm going to solder place all the things I'm going to solder in one spot. That's just me anti-stupiding things because I tend to stupid things a lot. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my, sorry, well, leave that there. I'm going to grab my beads, and I mean, it's just like me and liver of sulfur. I mean, one does go nose blind to the bad odors when one is forced to interact with them daily. You just don't smell them anymore. Or I'm sure you smell them, but your brain ceases to process. Like, I never really notice the smell of liver or sulfur when I'm using it. I will notice it if I've been like outside and I come into the store and somebody's left liver of sulfur like sitting on a counter. Then I will notice it. Then I'll be like, this store smells like demons. We need to fix this. But otherwise I don't notice it. So I'm going to take my bead. I'm just going to thread my bead onto my link. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tension fit my joint. Now, normally I say don't worry about the shape of your links at this point. Don't worry about the shape of your metal. That is not the case with this project because you cannot put these beaded links, you can't put these onto a mandrel to round them out because of the beads. So you do have to actually be careful to keep them in their circular shape. So I'm just going to do that for all 7. Also, I feel like maybe the dangling fabric tassel bracelet should come off my wrist before I start soldering. What is liver of sulfur used for? So liver of sulfur is the name for potassium sulfide, and it is used to oxidize or blacken. It doesn't really blacken silver, it turns it to a dark gray. So the most common use of liver of sulfur, which you've probably seen in some sterling jewelry that you already own, is where you've got something that's got a pattern, that's got a relief to it, and in the depths of the pattern it's black, and then on the surface it's shiny, and that gives you contrast and brings the details of the pattern out. So liver of sulfur is what makes the black part of that. Where can you buy the ingredients to make this necklace? Shaquille, whereabouts are you? Just out of curiosity. So if you're in Dallas, you can come by from me at Beading Dreams. If you are not in Dallas, you can probably get the wire and the large hole beads from your local bead shop. If you don't have a local bead shop that's convenient to you, there are several good websites where you can order things. If you're looking for large hole beads, Fire Mountain Gems is a good website to order them from. If you're looking for wire, Fire Mountain has that as well. Rio Grande, Grande, is another good place for wire. Your easy solder you're going to need to get from a jeweler supply like Rio Grande, or Stellar or Rose Co. I don't think Fire Mountain carries solder, though I could be wrong about that. As far as all the tools go, once again, Rio Grande is a good place to get those. Torches and whatnot. You can kind of limp along with a butane torch from the hardware store if you're not doing this a lot. That's what I used to use. After I killed like 6 butane torches from the hardware store in a year, I'm just going to continue putting my beads on and tension fitting them until I've got all 7 of them done. So yeah, after I killed 6 hardware store butane torches in a year, I finally bit the bullet and bought one of these blazers, which you can also get on Amazon, which cost me the same amount of money as 2 of the 6 torches that I murdered that year, and I've had my same blazer torch for going on 10 years now. So absolutely worth every penny I spent on it, and I really should have done it sooner. Though it's kind of the Terry Pratchett thing of, it's you can be more economical when you've got more money, because I'm pretty sure at the time I didn't have $60 to spend on a torch, which is why I kept buying the $10 ones from Harbor Freight. Okay, so sometimes when you're tension fitting, you're gonna run into something like this, where, see how it's kind of making like a little peak at the top and my ends aren't lining up? So I can just take my chain nose and give that just a real gentle squish to bring those ends down more in line with each other. See, there we go. Alright, and I'm putting all of these down with the bead at 12 o'clock and the joint at 6 o'clock. That way I will know where I'm gonna solder. Wow, I swear to God, I just lost 20 minutes of time. I looked at the clock and it was 6:30 and now it's 6:50. This stream is probably going to run a little bit over. I'm sure no one is surprised by that. Okay, so there are my 7 beaded links on my soldering surface, and then I'm just going to take my round links and I'm going to tension fit those as well. Now these links you would be able to, if you had need, put on a ring mandrel or a dowel to round back out, but again, if you're just careful of your shape, it turns out to not really be necessary. And just to keep consistency with my dumb proofing, I'm going to put these down with their joints at 6 o'clock as well. Come on. There. Okay, so that one's tension fit. So tension fit, for anybody who's not, I know, time totally is in fast forward. It's true. Corvus is not wrong. So for those of you who haven't watched the Beading Dreams soldering streams before, tension fit just means that I'm going to take the ends of my wire and I'm actually going to manipulate them past each other so that they'll snap back and hold the joint together with tension without me having to hold it, and that's how I can solder it without, you know, burning my fingers off. I also think fast word is my new favorite word, Corvus. Just saying. Hey Heather, how's the flagging going? Heather is working from home today, making the infamous flags. Those of you who have been around the Beading Dream stream for at least a year know all about the flags. For anybody who doesn't know, it is a very large project, which pays very well, by the way, that we do for a charity in town every year. They are a charity, we are not. We get paid for it. But it's just an enormous project, and Heather is the best person in the shop at making these particular items, and so she winds up having to make 80 plus of them every year. Okay, I need a little water for my solder. BRB. And by water for my solder, I meant my flux. Oh, yeah, that happens. Okay, so what's in this little jar is called flux. Flux is a protectant that keeps your metal from oxidizing. That's what allows this whole soldering thing to work. So I'm going to go ahead and just bloop a little bloop of flux on each joint. Alright, and so I am going to pick transfer these when I solder tonight. So typically when I teach soldering, I will teach to either put the piece of solder underneath or on top of the joint and then heat until your solder flows up and through your joint. And that's all well and good, but it can be frustrating because first of all, getting your solder to stick to the little joints. Oh dear, good luck, Lori. Bye, and thanks for joining us. So yeah, it can be very frustrating though, because your solder doesn't always want to stay up where you put it, and sometimes it gets blown off. So I'm just gonna give you guys a little window into how I actually solder when I'm constructing things. So I will, first of all, I'm going to need 12 pieces of solder. So I'm going to grab my easy solder and I'm going to cut myself and I'm going to put them right here on my solder board. I'm going to cut myself 12 little pieces of easy solder. Okay, and of course before you light your torch, if you are not familiar with how soldering works, make sure you go ahead and listen to my 5-point soldering safety lecture. You can get the link to that little lecture by typing !safety into the Twitch chat. Please bear in mind that I am not an expert on safety. I am just some rando on the internet. I have, however, been doing this for a number of years. And so these are just some things that I have observed over my time teaching soldering that really do make a difference as far as having a safe work environment. Okay, so now I'm going to take each of these little blobs of solder and I'm going to flux them, and I'm going to try real hard not to, like, you know, carry them back to my flux jar in my brush. I'm just going to smear a little bit of flux on each of them. So when I learned to pick transfer solder, it was a revelation. Thank you, Corvus, for me, because I just would get endlessly frustrated by my solder falling off of my piece, blowing off of my piece from the heat of the torch. It was just maddening to me. Now, some people find pick transfer soldering to be maddening. So, you know, it's really just about what works for you. But since I usually do it the other way, I'm going to go ahead and show you the way that I actually do it when I'm working. So I'm going to light my torch, and I'm going to heat up one of my pieces of solder until it forms a ball, and then I'm just going to scoop that little ball up onto my solder pick. Then I'm going to touch that ball to my joint and just put a little bit of heat on it, and there you go. That's one joint done. So again, ball it up, scoop it up, attach it to the joint, and heat. So I'm going to, because of these beads, I'm going to concentrate my heat mainly on the joint. I'm not going to do what I would normally do, which is heat up the whole thing. Obviously that's not as applicable for these little bitty guys that don't have beads on there, but you can still, the wire conducts heat well enough that you can still just focus on the joint and you'll be fine. Now I'm going to solder my clasp. There we go. Now we're going to start soldering my little beady hoops. And that one has a giant blob of flux on it. Goodness. You really can't overflux, because what happens is the flux just burns, it just melts with the heat. You know, what you will wind up dealing with if you put a whole lot of flux on there is it's just going to take time for it to burn off. So for me, pick transfer is so much easier because it's just like bloop and bloop. And yes, for anybody who's wondering, bloop is absolutely a technical term. Ask any metalsmith who has half a sense of humor and they'll tell you. Don't ask the ones who have a stick up their butt. They will probably not approve of the use of the word bloop, but they're no fun anyway. Alright, so I'm on my last one, which is over here. And there we go. Bingo. Okay, so do not quench your beaded links in water, okay? Once again, for the people in the back, do not quench your beaded links in water because metal conducts heat. That means that these beads are hot. If you throw them into quench water, even room temperature quench water, there is a high chance that they are going to crackle. And sometimes that turns out cool, like we've all seen crackle quartz, crackle agate, crackle glass beads, but there's also a chance that they're just going to crack in half and fall right off of your link. So you have to let them air cool, okay? The plain metal links, if you want, you can quench. That's, you know, that's not going to cause any problems, but you cannot, I mean, you can do anything, you do anything you want. You can do anything you want. You should not quench your beaded links in water. That's the way I should have said that. Okay, so once these are cool, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to link my chain together using my remaining open links. And I'm done with my beads, so I can go ahead and they do appear darker, Amy, and I think that might be, I mean, they're not that much darker, but no, you are correct. I think that, are you talking about the beads or the metal? I mean, the metal's definitely darker because it's oxidized, but the beads did get a little bit darker as well. I think that's a reaction to the heat. I mean, anytime you're going to put that much heat onto anything, like, there's a really good chance that there's going to be some kind of reaction. So yeah, I think that is a reaction to the heat. Okay, so I'm going to grab, so these are cool enough to touch, so I can take those off. Remember, check for radiant heat before you touch anything. These, okay, these are cool enough to touch too. Good. Oh, except for that, not so much that one. That one was hot. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to link our chain together. So I've got all of my open links here that I haven't soldered, and I'm just going to start linking together. So I'm going to take one open link and I'm going to put two beaded links on it, and then I'm going to close it up. And then I'm going to take another open link. I'm going to go through one of the beaded links that I've already linked together, and then I'm going to add another one. And I'm going to continue that until I've linked all of my beaded links together using my open links. So that's what it looks like so far. And I'm using my medium links for this because my two small ones are going at the ends. Okay, so once I've got all my beaded links linked together like so, then I'm going to work on the plain chain at the ends. So I'm just going to pick an end, and I'm going to grab another open link. I'm going to link that together, and I'm going to grab one of my soldered medium links. And another open link, and another soldered link. And that is the end of my additional chain. So I'm going to end with a small link, like so. And I'm going to go to the other side. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to link, like so. And link. Another soldered one. And then, again, this is the end of my chain. On this side, I'm going to put a small link and my clasp. So now I've got my entire chain linked together. Somehow I have one too many medium links, but I don't quite know how that happened. Okay, so now I've got my whole chain linked together, except for half of the links are not soldered. So now I'm just going to go through and just a little bit at a time solder my links. So I'm going to set this up so that my joints that I'm going to solder are not actually two things. First of all, the joint I've already soldered here should not be touching this link that I'm about to solder, because if that solder reflows, it'll solder the links together, which is not what we want. Second of all, this joint should not be touching that link. So I'm just going to set all of these up, and this is why I said I'm going to do this a little bit at a time, because setting this up so that, like, it's almost impossible to just set this up so that everything is in the go position and you can just go all the way down the line. So I'll usually do like 3 or 4 at a time. I need to flux the joints on each of these links. So I've got a joint there, I've got a joint there, and I have a joint here. Alright, so for this I'm going to need 3 pieces of solder, 3 joints, 3 pieces of solder. Flux those. Got my solder pick. By the way, this is a titanium solder pick, and well worth the money. It is substantially more expensive than a steel solder pick, but you're talking about $10 versus $1, so it's still not a very expensive tool. And the thing about the titanium picks is that solder literally is unable to stick to them, so you don't have to worry about getting your solder on your pick instead of on your metal. Alright, so I'm just going to ball up my first piece of solder, which is there. Come here. There it goes. Pick it up on my pick, like so, and then there we go. Next one. Ball it up, scoop it up, and Watch that bead. Okay, that's not an optimal position. Oh, we can't see because it's off camera. But, hold on. Okay. So this is the link I just soldered. You just saw me solder this. This is not an optimal position for this bead because this bead's taking up a lot of heat being this close to this joint. What would have been better is if I put it over here, but it survived. Everything's good. So now this is hot. So don't go touching on this with your hands now. This is why you have tweezers and tools and things at your soldering station so you can manipulate things that are hot without burning yourself. My my little curly Q burns from last week's tiara project, or maybe it was the week before's tiara project, are finally starting to fade. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing with my setup. I'm going to set that joint so that it is not touching anything that it could potentially solder to. That's too close, okay? Right there. There we go. Right there, that's way too close to that bead. So we're gonna rotate this up and around a bit. And now see how that joint, no you can't because it's not on camera anymore. That joint's become a little bit misaligned, so I'm gonna grab a second pair of chain nose and I'm just gonna real gently grab that. So you can see it really well there, how it slipped a bit, and I'm just gonna redo my tension fit. All right, and sometimes you can only get one or two joints. So that one I've got set up pretty well. I'm gonna try and set up this one here, and then I'm gonna do these two, and then I'm gonna move it down. Trust me, it's worth a little bit more, taking a little bit more time to do it, as long, you know, in order to have it actually work, as opposed to flubbing it. Not that I would know anything about messing things up at the 11th hour. No, you've never seen me do that on stream before. So that's 2 pieces of solder. Flux those. Alright, so I'm going to solder these 2. And the cool thing about soldering wire is it's really fast. This wire just heats up so quickly. It's so much faster than soldering sheet metal. Okay, so we're getting down to the end. Probably a couple more. I think I can get 3 on this one. It's pretty easy to tell which ones you haven't soldered yet because they're going to be the ones that are shiny and not oxidized. So there's 1. Oh, come on. I was trying to get 3. Gravity is not your friend. Okay, 1. So 1 there. 1 there. Ooh, can I get 4? That'd be awesome. Okay, I can do 1 there. So if I can just get this guy into a favorable position, I can actually get 4 done with this pass, which is going to be lovely and efficient. Except for that. And this is to get fixed. Still have 1. Alright, so I still have, ooh, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Jackpot. Alright, we're going to try and do 5 on this pass. 5 joints means 5 pieces of solder. So it's not necessarily important that you go in sequence, like, because I'm soldering the very last link, and these two links, there's still this one in here that I haven't soldered. It's okay, because you linked them all together already, so you don't have to solder them in sequence. You can just take your good fortune of maybe being able to solder 5 joints in one pass, and you can just chuckle and be happy about that. All right, here goes. Awesome. Okay, so that I think just leaves me with one more. This one right here. Alright, so that right there, that's my last one. Needs one more piece of solder. Bounce to God knows where. Flux on my solder, flux on. So especially when you're dealing with this situation with these second links, where they're not resting on your solder board at all, this is where your pick transfer really comes in handy, because trying to get a piece of solder to sit on that is just really difficult. Solder. Okay, so I melted that a little bit. That's okay, that's totally fixable. But here we go. That's it, that's my chain. So what I'm going to do to fix that link that melted is, after this is cool, I'm just going to take a pliers and flatten it out. No big deal. That happens when you overheat a bit and your metal gets too close to the point of melting and it just kind of slumps. But it's pretty easy to fix with just a chain nose pliers. I could take a rawhide mallet to it if I really needed to, but it's pretty easy to fix with just your pliers. So there we go. Thanks, me. All right, that's it. We did it. We made an entire beaded link chain. This is about 16 inches long. You know, you can just keep adding links onto the end until it reaches the length that you want, and you could even keep adding the smaller links if you wanted to conserve a little bit on your wire, though of course smaller links don't add as much length as the longer links. But this is now going to go into the tumbler to get nice and shiny, and I will post the finished product up on our Discord tomorrow. If you are not a member of our Discord, just type !Discord in the Twitch chat. You'll get an invitation link. We would absolutely love to have everybody on our Discord, because it's fun chatting with people. And that's it. That is the end of our Torch Thursday project here on the Beading Dream stream. Thanks everyone so much for hanging out with me tonight, watching me put fire to some metal and make this cool thing. Wait till it cools. Thank you, Smee. Okay, it's probably cool enough now, so it'll go in the tumbler after it's completely cool. I want to make sure that my beads are completely cool before I put it in the tumbler, but the tumbler will clean it, make it nice and shiny, and then it will be ready to wear. So, I'm Allison from Beading Dreams in Dallas, Texas. We are an actual brick and mortar retail bead store. Of course, we're here on Lover's Lane in Dallas, and we are open to feed your need to bead 6 days a week. We're here Monday through Saturday from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. If you're not local in Dallas, you can find us on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream, 5 times a week with complimentary tutorials. We do a torch tutorial every Thursday, and we do stream Complimentary tutorials every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Central Time, plus a bonus tutorial Thursdays at noon Central. We do live merchandise sales every Wednesday and Saturday at 7:30, and of course this Saturday is my birthday bash sale. So in addition to the fun party atmosphere, we're going to figure out some fun game to play to get you guys discounts on Saturday's sale. So tune in for Saturday's sale if you want a little bit of fun. Saturday's tutorial, of course, is this wire wrapped ring project. And tomorrow, don't forget, you will not find us on Facebook, you will not find us on Twitch, you will find us on Zoom. If you need those Zoom credentials, just email us beadingdreamsdallas@gmail.com. Everyone have a great night, and I will see some of you on Zoom tomorrow. I'm looking forward to seeing all your beautiful faces. Otherwise, I'll see y'all back on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream on Saturday. Bye, y'all.